sleeper rookies. Number 1, Bhayshul Tuten, running back 41, so just barely makes the cut because I think a lot of people have their eye on this player as this year's Bucky Irving because he plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are now coached by Liam Coen. I've got Jaden Blue, Dallas Cowboys rookie running back 43. Jarquez Hunter, Rams running back 61 right now. And then Devin Neal, another sleeper rookie with the New Orleans Saints, running back 66. Those 4 names, Scott, I throw them at you. Which one maybe stands out potentially above the others?
Yeah, it's going to feel like I'm cheating because I'm taking the guy with the most expensive ADP, but it's certainly Tuten. You mentioned Coen, who was the architect behind the Bucky Irving story last year. And also, it's not just Coen, the tactician. It's Coen new to Jacksonville. He inherited all these players, and Tuten is somebody he had a hand in drafting, right? I would assume he'd have a say in who they pick. So it's like, okay, do I want to play the guys who I inherited, who were kind of ordinary talents, or is it somebody who I drafted who maybe percolating to the top of the depth chart? And Tuten, 5'9", 206, you might think, well, can he be a featured guy? He was featured at Virginia Tech. He showed up at the combine and impressed with a really good vertical time and 40. CJ Spiller is his player profile or comp, which I guess you could take as a negative or a positive. I'm going to view that as a positive. Tuten is a player, again, I talked about, as soon as the draft happens, people start flag planting. I think a lot of people were planting on Tuten, and people can't wait to get Travis Etienne out of town. And I know didn't Tuten fumble on his first snap from minicamp or something like that? And all these people walking back their Tuten takes from 48 hours earlier. But when you take a coach who's shown he's not afraid to elevate talent, changes teams. This is a guy he picked versus guys he didn't pick. The ADP is just outside the top 40, so it's the ADP kind of lines up. And I like the tape I saw from Tuten at Virginia Tech. I when I saw this list when we were working on the script before we got the show going, I thought, okay, I don't know how Tuten isn't going to be one of the 3 finalists.
Yeah, I think he's the favorite. That's why he's the most expensive running back in ADP right now. Now, at one point, I think he actually was like right after the draft. As you said, a lot of people wanted to flag plant him very early. I think he actually was the top Jacksonville back in ADP in like the early best ball drafts and things of that nature. But now that there's been some coach speak about Travis Etienne, they've said that, he's going to be great in the screen game. He's a super important player for us. Liam Coen has said, I don't understand why there's trade rumors out there about Travis. We're really happy to have him in the building. He's now running back 35. So he's at least no longer the top Jacksonville back going off the board as Bhayshul Tuten. But he's a guy that, speaking of flag plants, James Gladstone, the GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, man, really loves to talk, he said that he actually brought up Tuten in his interview to be the Jacksonville Jaguars GM as a player that he would like to target. Now, they also wanted to draft RJ Harvey before Sean Payton got up there and got his guy very early, more earlier than people expected. He took RJ Harvey. So, it's just that doesn't mean that Tuten's going to be the starting back for the Jaguars, but a flag plant player for the front office, certainly fits within the ethos of a round 4 rookie, just like Bucky Irving, who maybe doesn't profile as like an obvious feature back, but really exciting players. Tuten, EJ Snyder was on the show at the Combine with us talking about him as a very, very talented back who certainly fits the profile of a sleeper. Stat from our researcher, Jonathan, Tuten averaged 6.59 yards per attempt on A-gap rushes over his final 2 seasons, second most by a running back drafted in the first 4 rounds this year. Bucky Irving was a monster on gap runs last year. So again, there might be some system fit here. I'm not quite sure if Tuten totally fits as a gap scheme runner, but Cohen's a guy who's going to marry the scheme to his personnel as well. So I agree with you. I think he's got to be like a favorite for this award because also, Scott, last thing here, we're looking for a running back who plays for an offense that is going to outkick its expectations. And, that was certainly Tampa Bay, which was 5th in EPA per play last year. They were a good offense the year before. They took another step forward despite offensive coordinator changeover. We're hoping that Jacksonville can go from like 19th in EPA, into maybe pushing towards top 15 or something like that, bare minimum, with all the additions and the great players they have on that side of the ball.
And somehow we got through all of this without mentioning there's another X factor here. Tank Bigsby is part of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he had some moments last year with that team that was obviously going nowhere. And, when you make up your mind how you feel about whether it's Etienne, it's Bigsby, it's Tuten, you have to ask yourself a question about Trevor Lawrence, right? Is Liam Coen going to get the most out of Trevor Lawrence? Liam Coen was part of the resurrection, Canales too, of course, the previous year, part of the resurrection of Baker Mayfield's career. I don't know if people remember exactly. The Baker Mayfield's career was basically on zero. I mean, he had bottomed out. It looked like he maybe would never be a starter in the NFL again. And then he has a really great comeback year 2 years ago. And then last year he had a fantastic season, will probably stand as his greatest season. But it's just amazing that the Browns, they had Baker Mayfield once upon a time. He had a bad shoulder. They had a bad season, and they decided to make a bunch of bad decisions, including getting rid of Baker for basically nothing and signing a quarterback who can't play to the worst contract in NFL history and making the worst trade in NFL history to get there. I digress. Where you come down on Tuten, where you come down on Etienne, where you come down on Bigsby, a lot of it is going to be, do you see, because if you're going to sign up for these guys, you really have to sign up for Trevor Lawrence on some sense. You can't say, well, Trevor Lawrence is going to be mediocre, but I want their running back. It doesn't work that way. You need the team to have buoyancy. You need the team to matriculate the ball down the field. So before you make a statement on any of these running backs, you're asking yourself how you feel about their offenses. And in Jacksonville specifically, how do you feel about Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, that's going to be the pivot point for any Jacksonville Jaguars discussion, is how you feel about Trevor Lawrence. And I'm with you that I don't want to just assume that Lawrence is what he is so far, because Mayfield gives us a great example of sort of that like turnaround point. And I think we forget that, yeah, Mayfield was really solid to start his career. And I certainly forgot this when talking about him during his stint with Carolina, where he was unplayable. But man, there's a lot of quarterbacks went through the Carolina Panthers that are having success elsewhere, Mayfield included. Sam Darnold, now the current starter for the Seattle Seahawks,